COVID-19 exit strategy. Will COVID-19 bring about an economic ice age? Coronavirus is almost certainly the biggest catastrophe in living human history, a cataclysmic event potentially on a par with a meteor strike that we believe annihilated the dinosaurs, which were probably the most evolved and dominant species on Earth at that time. In any important challenge in business or society, an exit strategy is a vital component for survival. Exit strategies are usually based on an assumption of a successful outcome. In business, exit strategies help to plan for the sale or disposal of a company or an organization. In domestic life, exit strategies could relate to divorce, a separation, or the leaving home of a child. And in warfare, exit strategies are plans based on the end of a military campaign. Exit strategies pose the question, what next? In the case of the pandemic COVID-19, there's been frequent reference to having an exit strategy to prepare for the what next question. Unlike most exit strategies, control of the final outcome of COVID-19 with its winners and losers is not confined to a limited cohort of individuals and or organizations and or communities. COVID-19 is a global phenomenon which will impact the whole world and the most diverse set of interests possible. There is not a sector of society or any human activity that will remain unchanged as a result of what is happening now. Consequently, the outcome of COVID-19 for both society and business is not only uncertain, but it's almost impossible to predict. As if the complexity and diversity of interests affected by coronavirus were not enough, the type of information needed to develop a successful exit strategy is almost entirely missing. It is true that our previous experience of serious pandemics like MERS and SARS have given us an insight into how to mitigate the impact of a pandemic and allow normal daily life to be maintained to a large degree. But the situation with COVID-19 is a new order of magnitude for the following reasons. We don't really know how many people have been infected because the figures are based only on people who've been tested. It doesn't include infected people with or no or minor symptoms. We cannot tell for certain how deadly the virus is because of that situation. We're uncertain about the full range of symptoms, and it may be that mild cold-like symptoms, which do not conform to typical identified symptoms of coronavirus, are also coronavirus positive and infectious. We're not sure to what extent children can spread the virus. And since they're a group with extensive social contact with friends and family, they could be highly significant as super spreaders. The origins of coronavirus are uncertain and could be the source of future and different infections. We don't know whether summer conditions will affect the transmission and incubation of the virus in the same way as it does with other viruses. We've not yet established why some people get more severe symptoms, even though we know from the death figures that the elderly and people with underlying conditions seem to be more at risk. We can't know how long immunity will last and whether it can be caught more than once like influenza. And finally, it's unclear whether the virus will mutate into other strains like influenza does. All of these factors make it difficult, if not impossible, to develop an exit strategy, or even whether an exit strategy will ever be viable. It's quite possible that unless or until a cure and or vaccines being developed and validated, COVID-19 could become the main determinant of the future of mankind and human society and commerce. So what next if no exit strategy is viable? The unanswered questions that I've run through show above inhibit any kind of reliable data modeling and simulation upon which we might assess different scenarios. The worst case scenario, in which COVID-19 becomes a non-seasonal epidemic with a virus that can be caught more than once and has a high mortality rate for older citizens and those with medical conditions existing. The worst case scenario also involves asymptomatic citizens and those with mild symptoms being highly infectious, meaning that any contact with them, especially with vulnerable people, would be dangerous. These worst case scenarios could also involve the current lockdown self-isolation strategy to become the normal as the only reliable way to protect the old and vulnerable. But the consequence of this would be a major threat not only to the way of life that we've become accustomed to, but also to the future of the human race as a heterogeneous species. If a certain sector of society, such as the elderly and ill, have to be isolated from the rest of society for their survival and denied human-to-human contact, it would mean that the current problems of the aging society and the resources needed to support a population of non-earners will be magnified exponentially and become totally unsustainable. The disruption to commerce, and especially those sectors which rely on social gatherings and low-cost transportation, will see goods and services, many of them we now take for granted, will disappear with massive job losses. Many of the knowledge sector jobs will be replaced by artificial intelligence and machine learning. And the trend towards careers based on apprenticeships will accelerate. So the majority of jobs available to human beings in the future will be basically craft and apprenticeship based. Clearly, those sectors of business and society that are essential to survival will have to continue. Agriculture, hospitals, schools, distribution chains, manufacturing of essential goods, and especially digital communications will need to continue functioning if we're to recover in any way from the current situation. It may be in a much extended current scenario that the use of digital communications for business and social use that are emerging for both business and social use will become the primary means of socializing and doing business. And it could be that COVID-19 creates an opportunity for humanity to address many of the environmental and ecological sustainability issues that have now become increasingly imperative. The ability of human beings to communicate has been the foundation of the development of civilization and the growth of standards in living, exemplified by the historical quantum leaps in communications technologies. In this sense, human beings are probably in a better position to survive a crisis now than they've ever been at any previous time in history. So there's a few things offering food for thought. Few things can be predicted with any certainty about the outcome from COVID-19. And for what's happened so far, we know that there's likely to be mass unemployment and hardship among the disadvantaged in society. This raises the possibility of some difficult questions about the future of humanity, such as, will there be large-scale civil unrest after COVID-19? Could there be a backlash against the rich and prosperous, including serious criminal behaviors against them? Will there be massive conspiracy theories promoted by ill-intentioned tech-savvy individuals and groups? And will this experience lead to the use of identity cards to certify virus-free status to allow for social interaction? There seems to be no end at the moment to COVID-19. We are making progress as a society, but there are still many unanswered questions. And it's to be hoped that the basic good in human nature will prevail in these circumstances. And even though life may never be the same as it was before, we can always hope that a new reality will in many ways be better than what we've been used to.